Hello everybody, Low2 for Life here, bringing you guys a brand new video, and today it is an Ancient Gear deck profile. Something that I have been very excited for is the new Ancient Gear support, and I've not seen a lot of people talk about it at all, and it's kind of funny because a lot of the old stuff from the structure deck is expensive. Have you seen how much fortresses are? The last time I checked, they're like 20 bucks. It's insane. This deck is also very interesting in that it plays a lot like Tempai, at least how I built it. You can probably try to build it in a different way, but this deck has always been, at its core, a going second OTK deck, and that's how I am playing it. It has similar playstyle to Tempai in that it has a card that says your opponent can't do anything about what you're doing. For the most part, you can still get nibbed, but really that's all you gotta worry about if you have the right card. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. I love this deck. This is the most consistent build I have put together of it, and it's just been a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or recommendations for changing things, I do appreciate it in the comments down below. And also, if you like it, rate, comment, subscribe. Moving on. So, let's start off with the first thing, and this is going to be controversial. We're playing 3 of the big bricky boy. Ancient Gear Dark Golem. And the reason why I say we're playing 3 of the big bricky boys because you don't want to draw into them, but also at the same time you don't mind because you have ways of getting them out of your hand, and some of the combos you can do require you to get one into your hand. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So what does this guy do? He treats himself as Ancient Gear Golem while on the field and in the graveyard. And also on summon, whenever he is summoned, you get to search out any 2 Ancient Gear cards or a Gear Town. So you get to add 2 cards from your deck to your hand, and then you have to discard. Now that sounds annoying, and it is at times, but there's a cheeky thing you can do with a combo where you can add Ancient Gear Catapult, send it to the graveyard with this guy, and then you can use Catapult's effect in graveyard. Because while Catapult's activated effect requires you to have an empty monster board, its graveyard effect does not, which is weird because I could have sworn that it did require you to have an empty monster board, but apparently I've been Mandelaed with that, which is apparently a thing I've been Mandelaed about a lot, because something about Swords of Revealing Light. Anyways, I saw a recent MDT video about it. It's very interesting. Anyways, and then, oh yeah, he has the standard Ancient Gear effect where when he attacks, your opponent can't activate any spell or trap cards in response. Very standard Ancient Gear last effect. The reason why you're playing 3 of them, at least I'm playing 3 of them, you don't have to, is very simple. I'm playing very few names, and you need as many good names as you can, and having him at 3, especially with how certain cards want you to be able to have multiple Ancient Gear Golems, I'm trying to maximize on that while also not playing multiple Ancient Gear Golems of the original one at least. Speaking of that, while we're at it, I do play 1 old school Ancient Gear Golem purely because Ancient Gear Commando, I think is his name, his English name at least. Yeah, Commander, hey, it was close. You can send an Ancient Gear Golem from your hand, field, or deck to the graveyard in order to let you normal summon a second time. And so, generally speaking, unless like you have an extra good Dark Golem, you don't want to send your Dark Golem to grave because he does not count as Ancient Gear Golem in hand. So you have to send the original from deck to grave. And you don't mind that as well because there are ways to get it back and, well, ignoring special summoning conditions. Moving on, we got 3 Ancient Gear Wyvern. It's Stratos. You normal or special summon it. You get to add any Ancient Gear card from your deck to your hand. Literally, monster, spell, trap, whatever, you get to add it to from your deck to your hand. 1700 attack is pretty respectable too. And if I remember right, this one has, yeah, it stops monster effects if he attacks. So it's a bit different from how the others work. It doesn't come up often. You can use it to attack first, get some chip damage in before like your opponent, like, I don't know, drops a Curry Fulton on you if they're playing that for Tempai, because unfortunately a lot of the Tempai stuff does work against this deck as well. To some extent, not exactly. Next we got 2 Ancient Gear Frame. I kind of want to bump it up to 3, I won't lie, because it is another searcher, but it requires a discard, which isn't as good, and I want to play more names, but also I'm trying to maximize the ability to go second and maximize the amount of good names. So 2 Ancient Gear Frame has been working pretty well for me. What's he do? Once per turn while he's on the field, he can discard a card, add any card that mentions Ancient Gear Golem or the original Ancient Gear Golem itself from your deck to your hand. This card's pretty good all around. You can get to it very easily because it's got 500 defense, so Box can grab it. And it does have a couple other effects, but they're literally irrelevant. It has a standard Ancient Gear effect where when it attacks, your opponent can't activate Spiral Trap cards, and then if it dies, so if it leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, this is funny. You get to special summon up to 3 Ancient Gear Golems from your hand. Yes, because anybody's going to want to see this and go, oh, I'm going to Torrential Tribute now. No one's going to do that. No one's going to get rid of this thing via card effect. It's 1600, they can just run it over in battle. It could be funny if they have to SP Little Knight it, but that's not going to happen. They're going to go for the other stuff. No, jeez. Yeah, I'm going to get rid of this and give you 3 Ancient Gear Golems for free. Anyways, moving on for the one-ofs. 1 Ancient Gear box. That's all you need. You don't want to draw into it. You only have 2 targets in the whole deck. Good old Frame and good old Commander, who is one of my other one-ofs. This guy's pretty cool. Commander has... You mainly use them for the first effect where once per turn you can send an Ancient Gear monster, Ancient Gear Golem from your hand, deck, or face of field to normal summon an Ancient Gear monster. And then if you normal summon an Ancient Gear Golem, you can special summon an Ancient Gear Golem from your hand or graveyard, ignoring its summoning conditions. Those are the only 2 effects that I use it for. It does have a third effect where you can banish it from your graveyard to activate one of the traps from, I think, deck. To activate one from your hand. Oh, play has to be from your hand. Oh, that's even worse. I don't like any of the continuous traps that Ancient Gears have. They have 2 if I remember right, and 1 is okay for giving immunity to your Ancient Gear monsters, but you already got that with Fortress. And the other is a monster reborn that buffs something by 100, and you have to have no monsters on the field to use it. If Ancient Gear, I think it's called Reborn, I don't remember, the trap card that lets you bring back a dude. If that card did not require you to have an empty monster board, it'd be amazing and would actually be worth playing as a one-of. But no, it does not let you do that. So anyways, moving on. We got 1 Ancient Gear Tanker in here. This guy's pretty cool. On normal summon, or special summon, you can special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your hand or graveyard, ignoring its summoning conditions. Only from hand if your opponent has no monsters. If your opponent has a monster, you can summon it from graveyard. Literally, you're always going second, so unless you're going first, you're gonna have a monster. I mean, your opponent's gonna have a monster on field. Unless they really bricked hard and they just set 5 pass. I don't know. Anyways, and then it has another effect where you can pop a card you control to give all your Ancient Gears 600 attack. Very, very, very cool card because it lets you trigger your destruction effects of your continuous spells and your field spell. So you have more options, and it helps push for damage. It does, however, unfortunately, oh wait, no, yeah, Ancient Gear Chaos Giant's still affected. So yes, you can bump up Chaos Giant, which is really cool. Very good card all around. And then I'm playing 1 Hunting Hound because I like the extra burn damage from him, and I like having the other fusion. You can totally switch out Hunting Hound for another Frame or a Gadgetron Dragon. The Reactor Dragon, I think, is the good one. I can't remember. The dragon, the big level 8. I'm not doing that only because I like having more options for fusion summoning, and also the burn damage is nice, and I like having another normal summon. So you could, if you really wanted to, you could switch out Hunting Hound for literally another tanker or a gear frame. That would be what I would recommend. You could play Reactor Dragon if you really want to. I'm iffy on Reactor Dragon right now only because the deck is leaning so hard on the Ancient Gear Golem side. So yeah, I digress. For our last one-of monster, I am playing 1 Therian King Regulus. This deck can very easily make Spriggan's Merrymaker to go into Captain Sargus to search out Regulus. Very good card all around, you know what he does. And I love the fact this deck has no archetypal locking, oh my god. Finally, for the monsters, let's talk about the hand traps. I am playing 3 Ash and then 3 Veiler. I want to find room for Ogre in here. I have Nibiru in the side deck, I was maining it, and you don't really care about maining it except for in very certain circumstances. But I feel like Nibiri's better in the side at the moment. I want to try to squeeze Ogre in here. And if you really want to, you can switch out Effect Failure for Ogre. It's totally switchable. It depends on the matchup. It's just, Ogre is not good against everything. Like, yeah, it's really great against Melodious. And yeah, it's really great against Tenpai. But it does, like, nothing to Snake Eye. It does nothing to, like, Manadium. So I put in Valor instead based off of what I have at my locals, where there's a lot of decks that just don't care about Ogre as much. So Ogre's in the side, and that's just where I think Ogre should be at the moment, at least in terms of this deck, and depending on what your locals looks like. Like, if you have a ton of Melodious players at your locals, oh, dude, switch this out for Ogre. Anyways, moving on to the spells. Next, we got 3 Gear Town. Gear Town, woohoo! This card is still stupid. I kind of wish we could get a better field spell eventually, but I don't know like what you would really do, because Gear Town is just so exploitable. So both players can normal summon Ancient Gear monsters for 1 less tribute. That's cool. Doesn't come up because you only play 2 tribute monsters, so that makes the 2 tributes 1 tribute, and that's just not relevant. The relevant thing is that when this card is destroyed by card effect and sent to your graveyard, you get to special summon any Ancient Gear from your, let's see here, hand, deck, or graveyard. Literally everywhere. And that's not once per turn. And so this deck has a bunch of exploitable ways to, like, trigger this multiple times. We already talked about Tanker. There's Catapult as well, which we're going to talk about. And then also the Ancient Gear Link Monster, Ballista. There's so many ways to, like, trigger all 3 in 1 turn. It's ridiculous. You can easily get to it now. Multiple copies, thanks to Dark Golem. It's just so stupidly good. And funnily enough, it's the only card in the deck, other than I think Fortress, that cares about the graveyard enough to where, like, you don't want to play Shifter in the main. I do recommend siding Shifter because Shifter is hilariously good against a lot of decks, and you can play Shifter in here. You just got to play around it because of Gear Town, and I think Fortress also needs to hit graveyard for its destruction effect. Anyways, moving on. Next, we got our next big spell card, Ancient Gear Catapult. So, as I said, this card has 2 really good effects. You can only use 1 a turn. You cannot use both. The first effect is you have to have no monsters on the field when you activate it. Destroy a face of card you control. Special summon any Ancient Gear monster from your deck, ignoring summoning conditions. So you can summon Ancient Gear Dark Golem. You can summon the original Ancient Gear Golem. You don't really care. Then, also, while it's in your graveyard, you can banish it, target a face-up card you control, destroy it, and then summon an Ancient Gear token. So this card is stupidly powerful, and depending on your hand, it really does come down to which effect you use really depends on your hand. If you open this in Gear Town, oh, off to the races. you are gonna plus so hard if your opponent doesn't ash this. But that's also the other big thing. This card is like the biggest ash target ever in this deck. This and Dark Golem are the 2 big ash targets, and this deck is still susceptible to ash, which is a bit annoying, but I digress. So, depending on how your hand looks, you might also end up having to use the graveyard effect. Because maybe you have a way to get Dark Golem on field. Like, you just normal summon a Tanker, effect, special summon Dark Golem effect, search. You search Gear Town, and then you search Catapult. You discard the Catapult off the Dark Golem, and then you use Catapult's effect to pop it, to banish it, to destroy Gear Town from your, while it's on the field. You get your token, Gear Town effect triggers, summoning, like, Ancient Gear Wyvern from deck, and then you get your Ancient Gear Fusion. Pretty much simple, off to the races, fun stuff there. Next, we got Ancient Gear Fortress. This card is like your lifeblood in this deck. You don't see Fortress, you are screwed, good sir or madam, or I don't know. Anyways, Ancient Gear Fortress, while it's on the field, your opponent cannot target or destroy your Ancient Gear monsters by card effects the turn they are summoned. For the longest time, I thought that was the only thing it did, other than when it's destroyed, it gets summoned Ancient Gear from your hand or graveyard. But then I read it again, and I'm like, oh crap, this thing has a third effect, where your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to your Ancient Gear cards. Your opponent can't do jack against your Ancient Gears. They can't do anything other than nib, and depending on if, like, this is why I was saying, like, you gotta have this out, because the only thing you have to worry about while this is out is freaking, I guess SP Little Knight. No, SP Little Knight's all her effect targets, so they would have, she would have to get rid of this. It's like the only thing she can get rid of. And then freaking, the only other thing you really got to worry about while this card is out is Nibiru, but you can so easily play under Nibiru, because if like you're that worried about like Nibiru, like maybe your opponent has one card left in hand and they got a full board out, you activate this, you activate your catapult or whatever, and you get your Ancient Gear Dark Golem out, you just go straight for the Ancient Gear Fusion, and then you go straight for an Ancient Gear Chaos Giant and swing for game. Like this card, you have to get to ASAP. If you do not get to it, you kind of just lose, because it's like with Tenpai, like in that regard, where Tenpai struggles if they don't have the field spell out. But however, unfortunately, because it's not as well, I mean, I would not say it's as consistent as Tenpai. Tenpai has like 3 easily special summonable searchers and stuff. Yeah, if you don't get to this ASAP, you're kind of just screwed. Speaking of searchers, though, we got a really good new one. Ancient Gear Advance. When this card is activated, add an Ancient Gear spell trap card for your deck to your hand. That's pretty much it. You can't add itself, obviously. It does have another really cool effect where it lets you draw a card. Once per turn, you contribute a monster you control, draw 1 card. Then, for the rest of the turn after this effect resolves, you get to normal summon an Ancient Gear monster for no tributes. So that is really, really good, because it makes it so that you don't have to worry about, like, for one thing, this is literally what Ancient Gear, like what Gear Town should have been. Gear Town should have been, you don't have to tribute summon for your Ancient Gears. This card makes so you don't have to tribute summon for your Ancient Gears, so you don't mind if you draw Dark Golem as much, so long as you got a way to get, like, out multiple monsters and do multiple normal summons or multiple special summons. And then, of course, also the searching is freaking amazing. This card, it's a searching and a draw. Like, I don't know what else to really say. It's good. Next up, we got Pot of Prosperity. This deck, as I said, it needs to be as consistent as possible. You need to see your Fortress as soon as possible. And if you Prosperity for 6 and either see Fortress or Advance, you're good. Well, depending on your hand. But anyways, this card helps out immensely. You can still OTK through it, but it's very difficult to. You basically have to drop double Chaos Giant or a Chaos Giant and Megaton with like 2 golems to be able to really easily OTK through it. But hopefully the goal is to be able to wipe your opponent's board and have Chaos Giant just kind of sit there and be menacing. You know, so that's the main thing. So you can OTK through Prosperity. It's just very, very difficult. So that's the downside to having to play it, but it's literally either this or Extravagance, and I like being able to pick, so it's this, because Extravagance, there have been way too many times where I banished both Chaos Giants, and that's my win con, so like the only way I'd like really play Extravagance over this is if I maximize on the Chaos Giants. Now, next up for our 2-ofs, our one and only 2-of, we have two Ancient Gear Fusions. This card is really cool. It's polymerization unless you control an Ancient Gear Golem, in which case you can also use monsters from your deck. It is not once per turn, but you do have to use the Ancient Gear Golem on field in order to fuse from deck. So you have to, if you do use your Ancient Gear Golem on your field, you have to get another one out in order to be able to like use more stuff from deck. It's not hard to do at all. It's just something that you do need to keep in mind. Next, we have 1 terraforming to get to Gear Town, so that we don't have to like waste our search on the on the Ancient Gear Dark Golem on it, or on the Ancient Gear Ballista, because Ballista can search Gear Town too. Just sometimes it's better to just be able to get to it and not have to worry about it. Or what this allows you to do is you can do the multiple Gear Town plays, which is always fun. And then finally, 1 Called by the Grave. Was playing one Forbidden Droplet for a minute, and I'm like, wait, no, that's silly. Forbidden Droplet's only really good if you have multiple. So I decided to put in the one called By the Grave, so that I have the ability to stop my opponent's stuff in the graveyard. Again, it doesn't come up super often, but like maybe if you don't like draw into the Ancient Gear Fortress, or you're trying to get to the fortress and they like ash you, cool, you can get rid of it and stop it, and now you don't have to worry about it. That's about it. Anyways, moving on, for our traps, we have 3 and that's it. Boom, 3 imperm. So that's literally it. So we're playing a total of 9 hand traps in the main deck. I do also side Ogre and Nibiru. That's about it. Now, it's not the 21 freaking hand traps that Tenpai can play, but it is usually enough to get you by. Hopefully. Again, it really depends on the deck you're playing against and like how good of a player you are with knowing when to hit key cards that your opponent is using. Anyways, moving on for the extra deck. This is where I'm always a bit tongue-tied on like what exactly to put in here, because Ancient Gear is very loosey-goosey with their extra deck. So we got some good stuff, we got their good stuff, and let's see how it goes. So first and foremost, we got 2 Chaos Giants. 2 Chaos Giants. Again, you like need 2 in order to OTK through Prosperity, but however, you generally don't need more than 1, because 1 Chaos Giant wipes the board and then your other guys get to follow up with attacks. Because if you don't know what Chaos Giant does, he's unaffected by spell and trap cards. By the way, he needs 4 Ancient Gears to go into, has 4,500 attack and 3k defense. He's unaffected by spell and trap cards, and also during the battle phase, your opponent's monsters cannot activate their effects during the battle phase. Which is really funny if you're playing against Tenpai. But anyways, finally, also it can attack everything that your opponent controls once each, and it does piercing damage. This thing is an OTK machine. It's not the best fusion monster for OTKing. I still think Cyber Dragon probably has the best fusions for OTKing, but that's beside the point. But anyways, this guy is still really strong. I just wish he could attack everything and then attack directly, but I digress. I do play 1 Howitzer for time and stuff. Howitzer is really funny. He only needs 2 Ancient Gears to go into, and is unaffected by all cards or effects. So you can't affect it, your opponent can't affect it, he just sits there and is kind of just stares at your opponent. He's got 1,000 attack, 1,800 defense, and once per turn you can inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent. Oh, also, if he dies in battle, you get to special summon any Ancient Gear monster from your deck, ignoring summoning condition. So, yeah, very, very, very good card all around. You only ever need 1, because once he hits on the board, like, that's it. Like, you don't need to worry about getting out another. I could see justification for playing multiple, but I digress. Moving on, we got 1 Megaton Golem. I don't like Megaton. I have generally thought about switching him out for another Howitzer or for a 3rd Chaos Giant, but, like, you're never making 3 Chaos Giants. So, Megaton is really good only in 1 situation and 1 situation only, and that is when your opponent has absolutely 0 monsters on board. Because Megaton, he can attack as many times up to the number of Ancient Gear Golems used for his fusion summon. Now, one thing I'm not too clear on with rulings is, does Ancient Gear Dark Golem count whenever you're fusing them from deck because they become Ancient Gear Golems in Graveyard? I don't know. I've heard mixed rulings on that. Maybe someone will be able to explain it better to me. He also counts Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate Pounds, but Ultimate Pound is just garbage. You can play it over the original Ancient Gear Golem, but there's no real point to. It's really just your choice. Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate Pound is not good. It's probably better than the original Ancient Gear Golem just for the simple fact that it has an effect, but the effect isn't great. Anyways, so yeah, this thing, you summon this when your opponent doesn't have any monsters on board. You summon Chaos Giant when your opponent has monsters on board. This is Yu-Gi-Oh! You're going second. Your opponent's going to have monsters on board 9 out of 10 times. So you're going in at Chaos Giant most of the time. Anyways, moving on. I'm trying to stop myself from saying I digress. I've said that like way too much. Moving on, we got 2 Ancient Gear Ballista. Ballista is your main link monster. On summon, you search out an Ancient Gear card or a Gear Town, and you can destroy a card you control to target 1 monster your opponent controls, and reduce its attack to 0. I think it targets, target one spell check card you control and one face-up monster. Opponent controls, destroy that card you control, and drop your opponent's monsters. So yeah, very good card all around. Helps you OTK, especially with Chaos Giant. Very good card. Moving on, we got one Asa, the Earth Charmer. This card you just go into if your opponent has an Earth in graveyard and lets you make more link plays. Most notably, you can use her to go into Nightmare Unicorn. But anyways, really good card. Comes up every now and then. I think, isn't Ghost Ogre and Earth? It's been a minute. I know the Ghost Belt Haunted Mansion is an Earth, and that card is picking up popularity to some extent. I think, no, Ghost Ogre's a light. I was just double checking. So yeah, if you get Ghost Belt, which someone might do, I don't know, but like if your opponent has an Earth in graveyard, Earth is a somewhat common attribute, you can do it. It's not super common, but it can happen. And then finally, we have one IP Masquerena to go into the Nightmare Unicorn on the opponent's turn if we're forced to go first. Going first sucks. And by the way, before you go, where's SP Little Knight? I don't have one. I don't have $100 to drop on SP Little Knight, at least at the moment. I could, possibly, but at the same time, I feel like she's probably going to get a reprint this year. So I kind of just playing the waiting game, especially since, like, Yu-Gi-Oh's, like, very mixed right now. I might talk more about that in another video. Anyways, moving on to RXCs. I play one Abyss Dweller for certain decks. One Baguska, again, that's for if we're going first. Like, the best play you can do going first, depending on what you're playing against, if you know what your opponent's playing, you can do SP Little Knight plus Baguska, sometimes one other monster. Another thing you can make, because Ancient Gear Golem and Dark Golem are level 8s, you can make Titanic Galaxy, Dingarusu, or the other Galaxy Photon that negates monsters. I'm only playing Hope Harbinger at the moment. It just doesn't come up enough to justify. One Spriggan's Merrymaker, one Captain Sargus, I already explained why they're in here. And finally, one Divine Arsenal AA Zeus Sky Thunder! Because, well, we do have Xyz, and hey, it's another spot. You can also totally put like an access code talker in here or something just to be able to help OTK. It's down to you and stuff. I just like having options for if the OTK falls through and I can wipe the board, make sure the opponent has nothing, and hopefully I don't die next turn. So that is the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope I explained everything well enough. The deck profile is almost 30 minutes. Oh my god, I need to shut up. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day. Rate, comment, and subscribe, and see y'all later. Peace. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do consider rating, commenting, and subscribing. Sharing the video helps as well. If you especially really like it, please do consider being a channel member. Every little bit helps out. And hey, also why not check me out on my other social media pages. Thank you, and have a great day.